Hi. So I want to tell you a story about this crazy thing that happened to me when I was living in Bali. Um, so I'm going to call this video Witches Fighting. Witches Fighting. So witchcraft in Bali is legendary. It's well known. Well, I won't say it's well known, but it is notorious. Bali is a very spiritual island. It's also a very ancient island, and it has gone through many changes. The dominant religion is Hinduism. However, prior to that, they had other kind of like more animistic, is that the words? Animistic religions. I'm not going to pretend to be an expert on Balinese witchcraft because honestly, like, I tried to study it and this shit is dense and like super deep. And honestly, like, I don't really like, I don't want to be like a cultural appropriator. You know what I mean? Like, I'm not Balinese. And honestly, the witchcraft is so deep and real that I feel like if I was going to study that, I would just have to dedicate my whole life to it. Like, I would just become that. And I hate these people that just kind of like casually pick and choose things from different cultures and different schools of, you know, thought, different schools of esotericism, and just kind of come up with some like new age, non-religion, fake witchcraft type of thing. I hate that shit. Like, that's really annoying to me. And like, yeah, I didn't want to do that. So that's purposely why I don't know that much about Balinese witchcraft, because I don't really want to know. Because that shit, I've seen things with my eyes that have told me this shit is deep, and you know, you just have to choose your battles and choose your roads, and I'm not choosing that road. But I respect those who do. So, okay, so witchcraft in Bali. I'm just going to read you a paragraph from this website, mindoffleroy.blogspot.com, Witchcraft and Magic in Bali. This is just a paragraph from there. Magic is an important aspect of Balinese culture that penetrates almost every act through of most of Balinese people. Okay, that didn't really make sense. Yet it is something that the casual visitor to Bali will probably never realize even exists. It is something that the Balinese don't like to talk about to strangers, especially foreigners, for various reasons. But a serious student of Balinese culture must constantly remember the important influence of the black arts upon the actions and beliefs of the Balinese people. That's so accurate. I would say that's really accurate. Like, because um, when I first moved there, like I already knew something about Balinese witchcraft, but like not that much. And so the first time I kind of asked someone about it, they were just like, no, no, like they just didn't even want to bring it up. And even like, yeah, it's like one of those things that like they know it's there, but they don't talk about it. And I like every time some like a Balinese person kind of wanted to talk about it but didn't want to talk about it. Like it would come up, but they would change the subject. And I remember someone even specifically said to me, like, if you see a witch, just go in the other direction. Don't even talk to them. Trust me, it's not like witches in America. You know, these are not Wiccans. These are not like, you know, fucking light warriors. You know, these are like hardcore fucking black magic fucking witches that will fuck you up. And you don't want to get into that shit. And like yeah, so it was like duly noted. Thanks, you know, like I appreciate it. Cuz like yeah, they're it's like legit witchcraft. Okay. So anyway, um when I was in Bali, there was a time period called Nyepi, which is when it's basically like it's this time when nobody can use any lights. I think I actually made a video about it and then I made it private because I was so riled up with all of the energy from that night. But Nyepi is the Balinese Day of Silence. And I'll just read here. So Nyepi is a Balinese Day of Silence that is commemorated every Isakawarasa. According to the Balinese calendar, it is a Hindu celebration mainly celebrated in Bali. Nyepi, a public holiday in Indonesia, is a day of silence, fasting, and meditation. So during Nyepi, the rules are that you cannot use any type of electricity. You can't turn on the lights. You can't turn on the TV. Basically, it's just silence and darkness. The airport shuts down. No flights come in or out of Bali. All of the businesses close. And in the time leading up to that, they have like all of these parades. I forget the name of the day when they have like the parades, but there's all of these well, I won't get into it, but basically it's a really cool holiday and I really appreciated it. The whole island is silent. Like you don't even realize how loud it is until everything is silent. But anyway, so and of course some people do violate the rules, like especially tourists, like, because if you're not that religion, you don't really care. And they're pretty lenient with tourists, like they're not going to fine you, but like the natives there, like the temple police parole the streets during Nyepi, and if they see someone local, like someone who's from there with their TV on or with the light on or making any kind of excess noise, like with the radio or whatever, they will get fined. And so, yeah, it's generally pretty quiet. So during Nyepi, you're also not supposed to leave your house. Like, so you're supposed to stay in your residence. So it's really crazy because I stayed in my residence the whole time, but like the night before especially, that's when all of the businesses are already shut down, and like you walk through the streets and it's like a ghost town. It's really crazy. But on the actual day of Nyepi, you're supposed to just stay in your residence. If you're like, the place where I was like a villa with like multiple little small villas. So if you're in one of those situations, you can stay, you just can't go outside of the gate. So, it was during Nyepi. For the most part, I was indoors. There was also an eclipse that day. It was really weird. But okay, so for most of the day, I was indoors. But during the night, I went out in the pool because I was just bored. And there were a couple other people out in the pool too. And it was just so cool because like it was so dark outside because there's no lights on. Like all the street lights are off. All the major buildings are, empty. So there's no light pollution at all. Just like complete darkness. And you can just see the sky, like every single star in the sky. It's so cool. And just feel the silence. Like you just really feel just like the energy of the earth, It's like, it's crazy because it's like when you go camping, it's like being in the woods, except you're in the city, I mean, as much as a city as Denpasar can be, because normally Denpasar is, it's like, it's not like a big bustling city or anything, but, there's lots of motorbikes and, there's lots of businesses and stuff. So it has just a hum, but during Nyepi, it's like just silence and like black. Okay. So I'm in the pool and so the place that I lived, it was owned by this family, and the two kids, I was kind of friends with them. They were both teenagers. Like one was like 15 and one was 18, and they were kind of like my guides while I was in Bali to just tell me about like cultural things and everything. So I'm in the pool and they were also in the pool, and the sky is completely black and everything is quiet, and I'm just kind of floating on my back And I look up and I see these like streaks going across the sky. And at first I don't really think much of it, but I'm just like, I kept seeing it. And they were kind of like different colors. Like one was kind of like red, and one was kind of blue, and one looked kind of pink sometimes. And they were like almost like neon, but it was just kind of like streaking across the sky. But it wasn't like super duper high up in the sky, like up in the stars. It was like maybe 100 feet above me, you know, like, and I'm like, that's weird. And like, the first thought that you would think is that it's lightning, but there were no clouds. There were no clouds. And to be honest, it didn't really look like lightning, because lightning is more like rigid, like it's kind of like zigzaggy, you know, and it's like, it's just, it blinks, like lightning just blinks and it goes out. And usually with lightning, there's thunder, you know, even if it's just that kind of like staticky sky kind of lightning, which is also common in Bali. There's still some kind of rumbles that come with it, like that thunder rumble. There was no thunder rumble. And on top of that, there were no clouds, because lightning needs clouds. It doesn't happen in clear skies. And that sky was clear. I'm like, that's so weird. And, you know, it wasn't fireflies, because it was way brighter than that. Like, I've seen fireflies, and fireflies just look like little dots, you know, and they don't streak across the sky. Like, this was a clear streak, okay? And so I asked the kids, I was like, you guys, what is that streak that keeps happening in the sky? And they're just like, oh, that's witches fighting. They just said it so casual, like, oh, like, and then they just like went back to what they were doing. And I'm like, what? They're like, oh yeah, it's the witches fighting. It happens every year. I'm like, what? And so they just explained to me that every Nyepi, witches will astrally project and battle each other. And they like to do it on Nyepi because no one is out in the street. All of the streets are empty. Everyone's in their house. So they have this like open space to just like let their souls run free. And so basically, they're laying around somewhere meditating, and their souls are jumping out of their body, and they're fighting each other. And I'm like, why are they fighting? And they're like, for power. I'm like, what do you mean? And they're like, well, whoever wins gets the other one's power. So I'm like, so what happens to the other witch who loses the fight? They're like, they just stay in a comatose like position forever, because essentially whoever wins like the fight will like absorb the soul of like it's like they're just absorb that power, and like it becomes part of them. And so wherever their body is, they basically like lose their soul. And I'm like, that is so interesting. And then as I looked up at the sky, it made so much more sense that like that was happening. And of course, I'm sure most people would never believe this, and most people would be like super skeptical. But I'm telling you, interesting things happen in Bali. And I'm telling you, I saw with my own two eyes these balls of light that were streaking different colors, like at least two different colors, maybe three different colors, that were just streaking across the sky. And they said that, you know, every year, every Nyepi, you can see something like that. And so later on, I went online, and I was just kind of Googling, and very, very many people have reported seeing like balls of light around Nyepi. Lots of tourists have described seeing like strange balls of light during this time. And not everyone not everyone attributed it to witches or witches fighting, but um, many people reported like the supernatural light during that period. And it was crazy because I went and I looked this up afterwards. It was not like I was expecting any of this. It literally just played out like that. Um, and the reason why by that point I had no problem believing it was prior to that, I was hanging out with a couple of my Balinese friends, and we were passing the monkey forest in Ubud. And I don't know how it came up, but they were telling me about how there are witches. Yeah, it was funny. They're like, there's witches. Yeah, they were like, don't go in the monkey forest at night. She's like, you never want to go in the monkey forest at night. Not that I was ever planning on doing that. I'm scared enough of that forest in the daytime. All those monkeys fucking running around. But anyway, she's like, you don't want to go in the monkey forest at night because that's when the shapeshifters come out. I'm like, the shapeshifters? And they're like, yeah, the witches go and turn into monkeys. I'm like, what? And she's like, yeah, they like to go and change into monkeys and like just hang out for the night and then just like change back in the morning. And I'm like, wow, I had no idea that like people were actively transforming in Bali. Like just, and I'm telling you, with the same casual tone that those kids told me that the witches were fighting, they were telling me about the shapeshifters. They're like, yeah, they shapeshift. And I'm like, you guys both believe this? And they're like, yeah, it's fact. It's factual. And they're like, um, these are not like, just like one of them has like a master's degree in English. I mean, we were all teachers. They were all teachers. It's not like, they're just from the backwoods, like, you know, listening to old wives' tale. Like, these are educated people. Not that that really makes any difference, but I'm just trying to emphasize that this is like a strong belief system and or knowledge of active witchcraft that's taking place in Bali. And so that was so interesting to me. They were just telling me about how the in order to shapeshift, it does require a life. Like the kind of magic that they do is blood magic. Like, so that's why it's really important to kind of like keep your distance from them, from the witches, and like not really get involved in their world, because they do actively kill people in order to do the type of magic that they do. And there's a crazy movie that I actually, it was funny because while I was in Bali, I had a friend who was in Cambodia, and she posted on Facebook like this movie Mystics. I think it's called Mystics in Bali, and it's basically all about Balinese witchcraft. And it was crazy because like I'm like, that's so crazy that I would hear about this movie while I'm in Bali. And it's honestly, it's funny as fuck because it's like this 70s like low budget horror movie, but it's actually like pretty accurate. But anyway, um let me see if I could look that up. So that's why when they told me, because okay, so first they told me about the shapeshifters, and then they told me about how they're, the black magic requires like sacrifices. And prior to that, like just general Balinese people had kind of like low-key warned me about the witchcraft there. Like I said, nobody really likes to talk about it, but I had kind of gotten enough hints that it was something that I should stay away from at that point. And then I got this reading. I went and had my tarot cards read, and she even specifically told me that I needed to stay away from witches and bad people because, like, being the type of having the type of aura that I do, like, because she knew that I was like witchy myself, I guess, you know, like she was like, because I have this type of soul, they all want to come use me and come like be near me and like use my power. So it's in my best interest to stay away from them as much as possible. Like I had that, she told me that in a reading. And she told me I need to pray a lot to keep like my light strong and my energy clear so that these kind of bad forces don't come at me. And so she had told me that. And so then by the time Nyepi rolled around and I'm seeing these light streaks in the sky and they're like, oh yeah, that's witches fighting. I'm like, yep, I guess it is. I guess that's just the witches fighting. And that's all I have to say about that.